All right, welcome back to Second Saturday, everyone. I'm one of your co-hosts with Brittany. My name is Cass Fry. My pronouns are they, them. I am a board member, treasurer, and secretary, co-founder, and the personal care chemistry instructor for this organization.
My name is Brittany Mitchell-Kelly. My pronouns are she, her. I am also the co-founder, entrepreneurship instructor, and the board president of Detroit CHEMpreneurIST. We also have on our board Vanessa Fry. Pronouns are she, they. She is the director of equitable relations and fund development. We also have Lynn Roosevelt Wiggins, pronouns he, him. He is the director of strategic partnerships. So any programming that we do with schools or community organizations, he facilitates that conversation, and then we schedule it. And then we have Katie Standiford, pronouns she, her, and she is the director of curriculum. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about our organization and what it's about. So our mission is our programming offers students from all backgrounds an opportunity to be empowered in an inclusive, safe space and excel in STEAM experiences. So STEAM is that science, technology, engineering, entrepreneurship, arts, and mathematics, while collaborating about personal care chemistry and entrepreneurship. And it's our vision to educate local youth in a holistic program to prepare and explore their passions while also diversifying and increasing the fields of STEAM. And our goal is to create opportunities for rural and urban resident-owned small businesses in hopes to boost the local economy. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about our two core subjects, personal care chemistry and entrepreneurship.
I might be biased, but I just love our mission and vision and the work that we do, Brittany. So how do we meet our goals and our mission and our vision and really push this organization through? Well, as Brittany mentioned, we have two core topics. The first one is personal care chemistry, also known as maybe cosmetic chemistry. So what we do in this curriculum is we teach the background scientific properties of these products and what they are and about the industry, right? And then students have the opportunity to really critically think and conceptualize their own product and really brainstorm what that could look like and what their business could look like. And they do this through the scientific method. So they will hypothesize what product are they going to make? How would it turn out? They're going to do some experiments, mixing ingredients together, making observations. Was this product what you thought it would be? Is the smell strong enough? And then from there, we go back, we draw conclusions, and we go back to the beginning and we do it all again. And through this process, we have a lot of different experiments, like I said, where they can make their own products that maybe we design for them, or they can really start to be creative and think about what they're going to do. And so now I'm going to give it over to Brittany, and she's going to share a little bit more about the other core topic of our program, entrepreneurship.
So the entrepreneurship side of the curriculum takes what students are learning with CAS and personal care chemistry and applies them to entrepreneurship. Or it could generate a creative idea that they have. And we really encourage students to think outside the box and think critically about their products or innovations that they come up with. So we have them explore the opportunity that exists within their own communities. And so we help them build their own toolkit in entrepreneurship. And so we start off with conversations about what is entrepreneurship. Then we get into a little bit of ideation and using the design thinking. And from there, they can generate either the product that they developed in personal care chemistry or their own unique idea around a business idea. And so we create this toolkit that includes market research around their idea or products. We also help them prototype their product ideas. And then we also help them generate their own web design or use social marketing tools to help them spread the word about their product or ideas. We also include helping them generate a business model. And lastly, we help them practice pitching about their ventures to both stakeholders and investors.
All right, so we always have upcoming events that we're really looking forward to and excited for. And so this month and throughout the rest of the year, this is kind of what we have scheduled. On October 14th, Illuminate from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Michigan Science Center. On October 28th, I will actually be participating in a panel. It's called Virtual Reality Life Arcade and STEM Incubator. And the topic of this discussion is how to use STEM and literacy to evolve education in Michigan. And that's from 10 to 3 p.m. On the 28th, we're also doubling our events. We're going to be doing a community Halloween family fun day, a trunk or treat from 4 to 7 p.m. at the Great Divine Center in Detroit, where we'll be giving out some awesome personal care chemistry items, some candy, and also some entrepreneurship information and more information about our program. So if you know someone who would be interested in that trunk or treat, it's an open event, and feel free to head to the Great Divine Center in Detroit. And then we're rounding out the rest of the year with some second Saturdays. So in November, we'll be back on the 12th, and we're going to do animals in STEAM. So we're going to look at different maybe science fields, entrepreneurship fields that relate to STEAM. And in December, we are going to do holiday STEAM crafts. So it'll be a little bit different than what we've done all year. We'll share some more information about our programming and things that are coming up next year that we're excited for. But we will also have some great activities for you to participate in. And so feel free to come back. Students are welcome, families are welcome. We invite all. And so, again, we're really excited for what we have going on this month and throughout the rest of the year. And tune into our social media to see other events that may pop up in November and December. All right, so now I'm going to share a little bit more about today's topic. We are spotlighting food and STEAM, and at Detroit CHEMpreneurIST, we strive to develop and support students and expose them to as many opportunities and areas of interest as possible. Today's presenters are great examples and role models for the students that we work with, and we could not be more excited to host these amazing people. And Brittany's going to go ahead and get us started with our first panelist today.
So our first panelist is Matt Hargis, pronouns he, him, and he is the owner of Buzz Beekeeping, LLC. So Matt Hargis is the farm to school supervisor for Detroit Public Schools Community District, and he's been with the Office of School Nutrition's Farm and Garden program for nearly 9 years. Matt earned a Bachelor's of Science in Sustainable Development at Appalachian State University in 2012, and Matt is dedicated to the farm fresh transformation of school food in Detroit through the empowerment of Detroit youth. In his spare time, he created and tends to a community garden right in his own neighborhood, and his passion for farming and gardening inspired him to become an entrepreneur. In 2022, he founded Business Buzzkeeping or Buzz Beekeeping LLC, a local small business that sells handcrafted hive components, bees, necks and queens, extraction services, honey hive products, and other farm goods. So Matt, we're going to have you take it away and talk a little bit more about yourself and your business.
All right, well, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here with y'all today. As Brittany said, I work for DPSCD in the Farm to School program, and so agriculture is my primary focus and career, and making sure that students have high quality meals. But with that, I've been keeping bees personally and professionally for about 5 years now, and I've been kind of mulling over what to do as a way to like make a little income to help cover the cost of the venture, because beekeeping is actually a fairly expensive hobby. And, you know, it's one of those things that is really pretty interesting and super important. You know, there's so many gardens and farms in the city of Detroit, and without bees, our crops would suffer pollination. Without, you know, the pollination services that the bees provide is invaluable. And many of you may know that honeybee populations are in serious threat due to, you know, widespread uses of pesticides, invasive species, which is a current major problem. There's a new mite from Asiatic bees called the Varroa mite, and it tends to cause colony collapse and major disease issues that ultimately cause hives not to be able to survive winter. And so I just got really more in tune with trying to like really ensure that my bees survive winter. Firstly, because it's expensive, and buying new bees every year is really sad. There's nothing sadder than going into your hive and in the spring and seeing, you know, tens of thousands of dead bees just covering the entire hive, and it's all like it's just really depressing. So it's nice to work on some preventative measures to ensure that doesn't happen. But and I'm going to show you, I'm actually out in the garden now, if I am able to. I'm going to show you all. So those were my 4 like larger hives. So that's what I started off the year with. As you might be able to see, the bees are pretty active today. It's really cold, but the sun is shining, and there's still lots of nectar to be foraged, and they're just trying to get the last little bit of sugar to get them through winter. But I assembled all of the green painted hive components on these hives. So bottom boards, the actual hive bodies, which is the main boxes, some shims that bees are able to get in and out of upper entrances, as well as the lids. So I kind of thought to myself, it's quite cheaper to build these components than to buy them commercially. In some cases, almost 50%. I mean, that doesn't necessarily include my labor and time in it, but it's definitely material wise cheaper to build. So I kind of dedicated some time to learning how to build these parts, so that I could expand the operation more. More hives means more likelihood of having some bees make it to next year. And when they do, then I can split them and make more bees in the spring. And, one hive next year could easily be 10 or more hives by the end of the season if you really do it right. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But just like expanding the population became important to me. And so I started to build the components. And while I got to thinking about it, it kind of dawned on me that there's no local supplier in Detroit of beehive components. You pretty much have to either drive 30 minutes to an hour, or you have to buy it online. And I was finding that the quality of the parts I was building was on par, if not better, than the stuff you could buy online for more money. So it just made sense to me to like try to scale that up. At this point in time, I just incorporated the LLC. So I'm working on trying to develop the website. So the website is buzzbeekeeping.com, and it's spelled just as it is there on the slide. It right now is just going to be an e-commerce site, but the idea is that if local people, I preferably want to do business in Michigan. If local folks want to purchase bees or bee components, or even like honey, and then getting out a little bit into some different things, like I also make maple syrup. So in the spring, I'll have maple syrup available, and that's all like gathered from trees in the city of Detroit and made right here. And then I also have this large garden, so there'll be potential for fresh vegetables to be available through my website as well, just as a way to be able to market some of these things. So the name Buzz Beekeeping, it kind of came about. If any of you know Detroit City Distillery, they had a gin and tonic week. Sorry, I know this is maybe a more adult topic, but there was a gin and tonic week. And so as part of it, there was a video contest to create the quote unquote best gin and tonic video. And I submitted it doing a video like with my bee suit on, with like fresh honey. I was just pulling out of the hive, and that was like a whole thing. And it dawned on me that like buzz beekeeping was like a funny, like, it's like, having a drink and also taking care of the bees, and, obviously they buzz their wings. So it just seemed like a funny, sort of tongue in cheek way about naming the business. And like, I got a lot of positive response on social media for that. So it seemed like a good idea. And just so you know, I do have an Instagram that I'm getting set up. It's Buzz Beekeeping on Instagram. So feel free to check that out. Yeah, so that's kind of the story on where I am, and I see this, I see like two areas that are really big for possible expansion. One is, like I said, to supply like beehive parts and components to local beekeepers, but also eventually to be able to supply bees and queens to other beekeepers. So, like if I split hives, then I can essentially turn one hive into two or more, and I can have bees raise their own queens and select the queens that have the genetic qualities that we're looking for. So some of the genetic qualities that people were looking for in queen bees are sort of like docile. Are they docile? Are the bees super defensive or super aggressive? Those are typically not bees that folks want. Honey production. Are they good at? Is the colony genetics good for honey production? Are they good for brood rearing, raising young bees? Are they resistant to the mites and other pests that are causing issues with beekeeping? So like most beekeepers will deal with chemical treatments to mitigate the mite issue, and I've had to resort to that here as well. It's natural treatments, but it is like a chemical process. Doesn't hurt the bees, but it kills the mites. But like ultimately, in my mind, the way forward is for beekeepers and the universities and researchers to actually develop and breed bees that are more adapted to dealing with the problem of mites. So there are there's a few different lineages of bees currently that are like showing some promise to deal with that issue. And I actually got a couple of those genetics in my bee hives currently, and so hopefully next year I can proliferate those genetics and eventually have some regionally adapted bees that are good at surviving on their own with minimal intervention. Currently it's such a big problem that there's not a lot of good solutions, but I firmly believe that, with any invasive species, we're talking about evolution and adaptation to eventually overcome those issues. So, again, that goes back to the science component, right? Like, the genetics and learning how to breed the bees. And, interestingly enough, most people may not know this, but all of the bees that are worker bees are female. So there's a queen, which is female, and all of her daughters, which are the workers. The workers actually, they carry out different functions based on what part of their life cycle they're in. Newly hatched bees are nurse bees, so they take care of the brood. And then as they get older, then they become foragers and they go out and gather resources. There are drones, which are male bees, but they're minimal. And of course, their real only function is to mate with queens, and but they don't mate with the queen of their hive. They actually, queens will go on mating flights, and they'll fly up to 2 miles away from their own hive in order to ensure that they're getting a good genetic mix, because we don't want to have inbreeding. So it's really quite fascinating, like just the genetic aspect of it. Bees are, like I said, essential to our lives with food. Without bees, a lot of the foods we know and love would really be unavailable to us because there would be no pollinators. But another really interesting thing about the bees is how they communicate. So bees communicate through pheromones. The queen bees will actually use different pheromones to control different impulses within the hive. And bees will also use they'll do little dances, and they'll flap their wings in certain ways that they're able to communicate with one another. And a final thing that's just truly fascinating is like their ability to geolocate. So bees can, once they've done an orientation flight where they kind of go out in front of the hive and kind of get a sense of where the hive is in relation to the surroundings, they're able to go out in a 3-mile radius and forage and make it back to their hive without difficulty because of their ability to geolocate. So, tiny little complex organisms that, make life possible for the rest of us, but they're just so fascinating with all their different adaptations. So it's tragic that they're currently dealing with a pest that they haven't seen before. That's invasive, that causes probably 90% of all losses in beekeeping. That's the varroa mite. So, I just think that more people keeping bees is a good thing. There's already a lot of beekeepers in Detroit, but the more the better. And Detroit honey is exceptionally good. It's all just kind of wildflower honey. At one of our work locations, the bees, they make this almost mint flavored honey, which is it's hard to describe. I'm not sure what they're foraging, but it's delicious. Yeah, I think that's probably all I've got to share. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all, and if you're interested in learning more about beekeeping, or if you're interested in getting started, or if you know someone that needs help or anything like that, feel free to contact me, and happy to share, and hopefully the business will grow, and that there'll be some demand for not only bees and hive parts, but the honey and other goodies. So thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Matt. There was a lot of things that I pulled out of what you shared, and one, bees are fascinating, so that was amazing. But a lot of things that we teach in entrepreneurship were there. You saw an opportunity. You saw a demand that needed to be met. You had this empathy for the bees and the community and the essentialness for food. And again, I'm just fascinated with really how much science and genetics go into that. So again, thank you for sharing, about yourself and about your bees and showing us your bees. We really, really appreciate that. And we will make sure to share your website if it's up and running, and also your social media amongst our social media. So that way, if there are any young or new beekeepers, or maybe even some experienced one that needs some help or some of your products, we can send them your way. And so next up, we have Chelsea Salame, who's going to be our speaker. So let me just go ahead and bye, Matt. And Chelsea, I'm going to go ahead and add you in. Hello, hello. So Chelsea's pronouns are she, her. She is the Grandmont Rosedale Development Corporation Economic Development Manager. Chelsea is a Detroit activist and community builder who earned her Master's of Social Work from the University of Michigan. While at U of M, Chelsea was a community-based initiative fellow where she focused on community, change, and leadership. As a graduate student, Chelsea was able to heighten her grant writing and philanthropic skill set, which has allowed her to best support the projects and programs she manages today. As the Economic Development Manager at Grandmont Rosedale Development, also known as the GRDC, Chelsea directs and facilitates economic development programs such as the Grand River Workplace, the Northwest Detroit Farmers Market, and other small business support events. Through technical assistance and grassroots efforts, Chelsea would like to build up 3 commercial corridors in the Grandmont Rosedale neighborhoods to better reflect the viability of the residential neighborhoods. That's amazing, Chelsea, and I'm excited to hand it over to you to hear more about yourself and the GRDC.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. All right, let's dive into it. So like Cass had said, I am the Economic Development Manager for Grandmont Rosedale Development. I know it's a mouthful. We love our acronyms and social work. So how I got started in community development was at U of M, where I essentially learned community building through community organization. So although I am specifically not a business owner, my business is helping businesses. So at Grandmont Rosedale, we have a few different pillars that we focus on. Through community change, we focus on housing revitalization. We have community engagement, beautification, and economic development, and that's where I come in. So we do have a few different economic development programs, as they had mentioned in the bio. The biggest economic drivers that we see, and definitely on the topic of food and entrepreneurship, are the the Northwest Detroit Farmers Market, which has been an 18-season farmers market. And then we have our Grand River Workplace, which is a co-working space. So much like other co-working spaces in Detroit, like Bamboo, Boss Blue, WeWork, Grandmont Rosedale, which is a nonprofit, developed our co-working space. And we basically are a small business incubator where we have virtual memberships, in-person memberships, and entrepreneurs from all over can come in and have a subsidized rate. You know, we don't charge as much as the other workplaces around or co-working spaces. We also have a subsidized retail space in the front of the building. So not only do Black and Brown business owners have the opportunity to come in and have an office space, but we also have a discounted retail option, which is very crucial, especially on the Grand River corridor. I'll dive in a little bit. So Grandmont Rosedale is on the northwestern side of Detroit. We specifically serve 5 neighborhoods. And in that, we're in between Schoolcraft, Grand River, and 6 Mile, AKA McNichols. So with that, we see how, historically, we've seen a lot of investment in the residential areas. If you've been to Grandmont Rosedale, you definitely know the large brick houses, the 2 doors and A-frames. The housing is absolutely beautiful. So GRDC for the last 30 years has been able to build up the housing stock. And that's been amazing for us. We've kind of worked ourselves out of the job. But another problem that we've seen emerge is economic development on our commercial corridors. And even though there's been investment in the residential areas, there's been a disinvestment in the commercial areas. So hence our economic programs to better basically facilitate businesses not only from Detroit, but from the neighborhood. And that's been really important for us, because what that looks like is we get to build one-on-one relationships with all sorts of businesses. I mean, people can come through our door, an entrepreneur can come through our door, and regardless of their fate, wherever they're at in their business, if they don't even have a business plan, we can sit down and help them and establish their business plan, you know, any kind of projected financials. And this will help us refer them out to other small business support services like Prosperous, Motor City Match, Hatch Detroit, and things like that to get them best prepared to finance their business. So with that being said, we do have these economic programs. Going back to the Northwest Detroit Farmers Market, we have a strong focus on food entrepreneurs, hence it is a farmers market. So that looks like a lot of different things. That can be cottage food vendors that make handmade goods and come and sell their products at the market. We have a lot of food trucks as of this year. And, you know, it can be a small business food truck such as Norma G's. Norma G's has grown into a renowned Caribbean cuisine on the east side. And they started off in a food truck at our farmers market back in the day. So it feels good to be able to offer these opportunities. But more related to the STEAM field is our relationship with Detroit Black growers and produce farmers. So at the farmers market this year, of course, because of the pandemic, much like the rest of the world, we really struggled to find businesses that were stable enough and had enough capacity to even vend at a farmer's market. So when we were planning for the season, we were getting a little worried because as you actually can see here, this is Norris. This is our main man. He's pretty much our only consistent produce farmer at the Northwest Detroit Farmers Market. We weren't sure if we were going to able to get him back this year. So in an effort to get some more produce at the market, GRDC was able to connect with the Detroit Black Farmers Land Fund and able to offer subsidies and a no-cost vendor fee for their vendors. And that was a cool community partnership that helped us not only address the food disparity, but it also was able to support Black entrepreneurs in the STEM field. We all know that Detroit's a food desert, and if we can support these urban farmers in their business, I would love to in any way. And again, we do this not only at the farmers market, we have biannual small business support events. The focus on food isn't so much there, but we definitely support the Chem Beauty. The majority of our vendors throughout our, I think it's like 4 economic programs, are Black women. So we get a lot of Black women entrepreneurs, and it's really great to be able to support them at all of their stages. And I want to circle back to the Northwest Detroit Farmers Market. In addition to our partnership with the Detroit Black Farmers Land Fund, we were also able to bring in GHI Electronics. This was last year, and the farmers market started again 18 seasons ago, and it became because of a need for fresh produce and locally grown food, because again, Detroit was a food desert, much more back in the day than now. But in that, we've been able to not only provide fresh food and local produce with vendors like Norris and Motor City Garden and Farm, but we've been able to offer STEAM programs and partnerships through GHI Electronics, Keep Growing Detroit, and then Habitat for Humanity. One of my favorite community programming was with GHI Electronics. They came last year, and they call it a brain pad program, where they have little demos. It's essentially like a Game Boy or walkie-talkie, and it's a technique to teach young children coding, so they can program their own video games and learn about coding through a simple, fun little thing that is easier to comprehend. So we brought them out last year, and they brought their game pads out, and then a couple of their robots, and it was just really great to see the kids interact with this kind of technology, because I really don't think that they've gotten to experience that. And again, this is as their parents are shopping for fresh and local produce. We offer all food assistance programs at our market. So if you have WIC or EBT, you can attend the market and redeem your tokens there. And we're bringing families out to not only shop for fresh produce and local goods, but we try to offer them kind of like a educational piece or something to address further social determinants. And again, for Keep Growing Detroit, they have provided us with seeds for seed swaps and transplants for plant transplant swaps and things like that. And it's been great because we get to offer these additional kind of resources to communities and family members as they're just shopping. And it's always all free. It's never we don't really charge a high vendor fee, and we try to offer as many subsidies as we can. So that's been really great. The farmers market is definitely an economic driver. If you can click forward a little bit on the slides, I want to run a couple stats. Maybe back. Okay, yeah. So going back to the Northwest Detroit Farmers Market, we do have about 20 vendors per week. They're not always the same vendors. We do have a variety. So roughly that brings in $20K of local spending to the Grandmont Rosedale area. And all of our vendors, again, are primarily Black women, but not only that, they're from our neighborhood. So between the 5 neighborhoods, we can bring in $20K locally to spend. And then just circling back, we always offer subsidies. We were able to sponsor over 20 vendors through our partnership with Comerica Bank. And it's just bringing people together to see how we can support one another. And then with our 20 vendors per week, we do an annual assessment on them, assessing their small business needs. Even though, they're vending at a small market, they're still a business, and we want to try to support them in the best way that they can. So whether that's, again, helping them build out their business plan, or asking questions like, are you balanced on your books, or do you understand QuickBooks? And these are all topics that we cover at Grand River Workplace. So not only can they get entrepreneurial support at the farmers market, any of our co-working space members are invited to participate in any of these corresponding topics or workshops that we have. We've had Accounting Aid Society doing projected financials and bookkeeping. We have partnered with Michigan Women Forward to do a digital divide and Google Basics. And it's just been really great to partner with these different Detroit ecosystem organizations that support small businesses just as we do. So it's been great facilitating that. And then the last thing I want to talk about that GRDC has their hands in, and this is one of a bigger projects that we have taken on. So I know I mentioned GRDC does housing revitalization. So we are currently operating two major housing developments. One is the West Outer Drive. I know I'm all over the place. I'm so sorry. The first one is the West Outer Drive historic apartments. This is going to be low-income housing, just housing. And then our second housing development is the 19505 Grand River Avenue, which is a senior mixed housing. And what I mean by mixed housing is, so this is a multi-story building. We bought an old IHOP and we're going to tear it down. And it'll be a multi-story building with affordable senior housing on the upper floors. And then on the ground floor, open to the public, is 5,400 square foot of commercial retail space. So much like our Grand River Workplace and our pop-up commercial space, where we offer a subsidized retail space to Black and brown entrepreneurs, we'll have 54 additional 100 square foot of this. So we're really excited to build out the commercial space on the ground floor, and just affordable commercial space is a huge need on our corridor. I think the average square foot of a building goes for, I think, like $22 a square foot. And those are like downtown prices. And the thing is Grandmont Rosedale is not downtown. So just barriers to access is definitely affordability and commercial development. So GRDC's hope is to white box a space for commercial activity and entrepreneurial activity at an affordable price. So we hope to have 3 retail spaces and then a sit-down restaurant space. Going back to the food topic, Grandmont Rosedale loses upwards to $8 million in capital leakage a year, for meaning that people in the neighborhood go to the suburbs and other places to spend over $8 million a year on food. So when we were analyzing the neighborhood and what economic opportunities we should focus on, a strategy was to establish a sit-down restaurant. Even though Grandmont Rosedale does have food and restaurants in the neighborhood, they're all fast casual, like fried food or fast food. And what we heard from community engagement practices is that the neighborhood wanted a neighborhood restaurant or bar where that they could visit and not have to leave the neighborhood. So that was a need that came out of the community. And so in return, GRDC is trying to facilitate the build out of a commercial kitchen, which is also a barrier to access. Building out a commercial kitchen as a small business entrepreneur is just not feasible. I think minimum it would probably cost at least $500,000 to build out a commercial kitchen in any space if you wanted it done right. And again, that's just not really realistic for a small business owner, especially one that's already having barriers to access their capital and just resources to build their business. So these are just a few ways that GRDC tries to support entrepreneurs, between vending at the farmers market or one of our small business events, to offering one-on-one business coaching to really anyone that has a question. I'll never turn down a question from anyone, to connecting businesses with capital or grants. We've written and fiduciated many grants on behalf of businesses. And yeah, that's really all I have to say. I know, again, I'm sorry I was all over the place, but I just got so excited. Thank you again for having me. And if you are a small business owner or entrepreneur, even if you're not in the Grandmont Rosedale area, feel free to connect. You can find my information, I'm sure, at the end of the slide, or grandmontrosedale.com.
Chelsea, thank you so much. And, just like for Matt and Buzz Beekeeping, we will share the GRDC information on our social media. And if you go to our social media, you're likely to see some posts that we've already shared. We've been to that Northwest Detroit Farmers Market, and I just want to say that the GRDC does an amazing job within the community in Detroit. The support and resources you, Chelsea, and the GRDC give to the community, entrepreneurs, and especially BIPOC, and the women within those communities, it's truly inspiring. And I also really love the support and affordable retail space, for commercial activity, and the commercial kitchen. I mean, that's just amazing, and it's not something that you see very often. And so if anyone, tuning in or, watching this later on our YouTube page, know someone that could benefit this or within that community, we will, again, share that information so you can reach out to them, and, continue your entrepreneurial journey and get the support that you need. And so now I'm going to bring back Matt, and we're going to go into some questions that we have for Chelsea and Matt today. So before I get started with my facilitated questions, I am going to leave some space for anyone who is with us today to either come off of mute and ask a question, or to drop it in the chat and I will read that question. So I always say I'm really bad at this part of silence, but I'll give about 30 seconds for anyone if they need that time to come off mute or drop it in the chat. And I'll probably not stop talking during that time because, again, as I mentioned, terrible at silence. Definitely should work on it, but not today. Today's not the day. I should have prepared music or something. Get the recorder out from 6th grade. I always say Jeopardy, but that hasn't happened yet. Maybe next time. All right. Well, I don't see anything, and I'm tired of waiting, and patience is not my virtue. Oh, Brittany, coming in. All right, Chelsea. So we have a question for you in the chat. See, if I just would have been a little bit more patient, I would have.
I'm a slow typer.
All right, Brittany, do you want to ask it, or do you want me to read it?
I guess I can ask it. Chelsea, I forgot, did you mention the cost for space at Grand River Workplace and what it includes for local aspiring entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I would have to double check. The co-working space, it's a monthly membership. I believe I want to say a couple $100, under 100. I think it's about 100 right now. The dedicated office space is a little bit more. It's around 300. And then the subsidized retail space, we do have a wait list that goes into mid next year because we rent it out at like a 3 to 6 month basis, but it's upwards to $600 a month.
All right. Very affordable. And that's so important. And I think too, you spotlight businesses, like don't you have window space or something within that center?
Yep, they do have like their full window display that they have to maneuver. Right now we have Moy Hair Essentials in there, and then the last tenant was actually Estelle's Vegan Cuisine, and that was the first Black vegan bakery on Grand River and in Detroit.
Oh, I'm gonna have to check them out. All right, so no other questions have dropped in the chat, y'all slow typers. So I've got these facilitated questions, and my goal is to just go back and forth between Chelsea and Matt, and have you share a little bit more. And so the first question, and I'll start with Chelsea and then Matt, you'll be able to answer after, is what is the most exciting thing about your work? If you had to pick one thing that you just find fascinating, exciting, maybe even drives you, what is that? tough one too. So if you got to think for a second, it's allowed. But again, I'll probably continue to talk.
I think the most exciting thing for me in my work is the synergy around the community partnerships. I know I had mentioned before, like we partnered with Habitat for Humanity and GHI Electronics, and we have so many outlets and opportunities to bring people to the table. And I think that's what GRDC does best. It's just a house of synergy for grassroots work. And when you bring small business support and entrepreneurship in it, you know, the Detroit ecosystem is very hands-on, and it's just been great to loop in Detroit Economic Growth Corporation or organizations like Detroit Means Business. And I think that's my favorite thing, is the partnerships that come out of it, and these really cool workshops or tutorials where you have just random business owners coming in. It's not always people you know or businesses that are from the community. It's like, how did you hear about us, or how did you get here? And you know, you never know how far the word's going to spread, and that's my favorite thing.
Yeah, I love that connection. It's so important. And I always say Detroit is the entrepreneurial hub of this country, and the people here, they work really hard and they're very creative, and you know, offering those resources in that community and being a part of it is just amazing. All right, Matt, your turn. What is the most exciting thing about your work?
So, like both personally and professionally, like, you know, with my professional work, it's about like reframing like how people interact with food and like changing people's relationship to food. But like in this specific project, it's really, I think that like I just find the bees so fascinating that I really want to share that information with people. And I mean, I think there's also like a general sort of fear of bees, and like to help like folks reframe that and to think of bees in a different light, and you know, some healthy education around the difference between yellow jackets and honeybees, but just like to get, you know, obviously if you have a allergy, that's a little bit different, but you know, generally just to reframe how people think of bees and the relationship we have with them, and really that the way we eat depends on them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I've seen so many people call a yellow jacket a bee, you know, and they're not the same thing. So that's awesome, you know, creating and reframing that narrative. And it's important to really, like you said, keep those bees alive and within, because we need them. And so that's amazing. And thank you for sharing. All right. So now that we've talked about the most exciting thing, I want to know, you know, what's the biggest challenge in your work and in your day-to-day operation? And Chelsea, I'll go ahead and start with you.
The biggest challenge that I think, so I'm a little nitpicky, so I know I talked about it a little bit, but the affordability of commercial retail space, I think, is something that's been really annoying to me lately. There's a lot of challenges in economic development, but right now it's been particularly hard because we want to bring in new businesses to the community, but we just don't have the right space to give them, or an adequate space to give them. I've got building owners selling dilapidated businesses for over $100,000. And again, that's just not feasible for a small business owner. Or, you know, when you're thinking about building up the community, we're not trying to nickel and dime people for their, you know, their money. And again, going back to the commercial kitchen, it's like, that's such an asset to have in a community. And so I think affordable space is what I'll say is my biggest challenge.
Yeah. And you know, that the capitalism of wanting to make that money and in not like necessarily sharing the resources, I think runs within a lot of those people who, you know, want to charge for that property is you maximize, you know, instead of supporting and uplifting and not looking, you know, at like that lump sum up front, but like, how can you be a part of the community and make it affordable and share that resource and build other people up? And I'm right there with you on that. So thank you for sharing. Yeah, right. All right, Matt. So, what is your biggest challenge in your day-to-day operations?
So for me, it's definitely time. I work over 40 hours a week anyway, so trying to squeeze in, all the other things on top of my other many hobbies and the new business. Time is really the most critical thing, but also to a degree space. I all summer I was doing woodworking in the backyard, and I needed to take a room in my house and convert it into a wood shop space because I need to keep my startup costs low. And my plan is to kind of go like a build to order situation so that I don't have to like a lot of inventory overhead, at least in the startup phase. So, but yeah, space and time, I think for me is right now the biggest thing.
Yeah, well, I would say many entrepreneurs, if not all entrepreneurs, totally understand that time thing. It seems like they don't sleep. I don't know another an entrepreneur that says they get their full night's sleep with running a business and trying to do everything. And to kind of relate what you said to what Chelsea was talking about is the space, right? You can't afford that in a small business. You have to really build your business up and be a larger, or you even have to do that to get funding through banks and other large organizations. Without that business plan, without showing all those costs and your profits, you can't get it. But as Chelsea talked about, microloans and things like that are out there, but still those are things that you have to pay back, and you have to make sure that you have that incoming business, and that's really hard if you're just starting out. And so I think a lot of entrepreneurs can share that challenge with you as well. And so now to take it back to your childhood, right? Because we work with students. We work with all ages of students, but primarily we've been focusing on 6th to 12th graders. And so for them, thinking about the future and thinking about what they're going to do, and maybe if they're interested in bees or economic development, looking back and thinking about yourself, what is something that you wish you knew when you were younger that really would have helped you with your career and where you are now? And so, Matt, let's switch it up and start with you if you think you have your answer.
Well, so an interesting thing is that, my father was an entrepreneur, and like as a kid, I was always like daydreaming businesses to start. Just whatever my interest of the day was, like trying to figure out like a business idea behind it. I actually did like have like a little farm stand like in my neighborhood back in North Carolina when I was like a young teenager. But like with that said, I think I think it's like kids should really just figure out like what they're excited about and put energy into like what those passions are, and really like staying open to opportunities that life brings. I think are just like some like takeaways that are important in my journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Knowing that if you find what you're passionate about, you can really work for yourself, be an entrepreneur, pursue that. You don't also have to make that choice. I mean, you can work for somebody else, but it's important to love what you do, for your mental health and to make sure you want to keep doing that. And so great advice, pursue your passion, whatever it is, go for that interest. All right, Chelsea, what's some advice that you maybe would have given yourself or wish you knew when you were younger?
I would say to my younger self just to remember that you're better than you think you are. And I think when I was a kid, I wanted to go in a much different path than I am now. I mean, I never thought I'd be like a project manager in a nonprofit, but I knew I would always be in nonprofit work. So similar to what Matt was saying, is find what you like, find something that excites you, and just go with it. And then I love what I do, but I don't necessarily, it's not what I panned out. But definitely just that you're better than you think you are, and just keep doing what you're doing. Lean into your strengths, lean into what you love, and don't hold back.
I love it. Love yourself. Don't let anyone tell you that you're not great or amazing or you can't do it. And to point out what you said, and I think it's an important thing to keep in mind is you might have a totally different idea. You may be following your passion, but thinking you're going to do something else. But your journey is going to change. One door is going to open, another door is going to close. You're going to take a left or right. Life happens. But it's important to just, keep on going and stay positive and really enjoy the journey. There's going to, my new saying is no one makes it through life without bad things happening. But on the flip side, no one makes it through life without good things happening. And so we're all on our own journey. And it can be hard, but, having the support system in a community like GRDC, really launch on and grab onto those opportunities. And so now my next question I ask all of my guest speakers and presenters this is how do you practice self-care? Because it can be important, when we're working 40 hours a week or working 80 hours a week and starting our own businesses and, really wanting to make sure that we're supporting the community and giving them, their needs and what we have to offer, but that can take a toll on ourselves. And so we'll start with Chelsea this time. How do you practice self-care?
Definitely advocate for self-care, especially in entrepreneurial work and as well as nonprofit work. But what that looks like for me is just a lot of more quiet moments to actually dial in. I try to at least once a day just take that deepest breath of the day and check in, how am I feeling? And then spending time with family really recharges me. It might not necessarily always be a quiet time, but it's definitely a time that recharges me. And, bringing myself back to my roots really makes me feel recharged and just kind of realign, why I'm doing what I do. And saunas. I love a good hot sauna. Definitely sweats any kind of demons I had out for the week.
Yeah, definitely. That'll do that. If you sit in a sauna, you will sweat all of the impurities out. And, to highlight on one of the things that you said is you have to take at least, an hour a day or, whatever that is to just be with yourself and check in with yourself because you know yourself best. How am I feeling right now? What do I need? And how do I give myself that space to realign? And so I love that you shared the ways that you do that and really appreciate that. All right, Matt, up to next is you. It's your turn. How do you practice self-care?
So, yeah, that's like the $1 million question, right?
Yeah.
How do you manage to take care of yourself when you're busy taking care of so many other things? I think one of the ways I like is to be outdoors, to be in nature. It's nice to be able to go camping for a weekend and unplug and reset to the natural world, because being in Detroit is so urban. But at the same time, here where I live on the east side, it's very very wild and there's pheasants, so it's almost like the best of both worlds to me. But just trying to make time for yourself. Your mental health is not something that's worth sacrificing for short-term gains. So making sure that you're treating yourself with respect and the value that your time has, right?
Absolutely. And nature is so important for us. I mean, we have parks and we put them within the city because it is something that really centers us and is therapeutic and is essential to mental health. And so love that that's what you get out and do. And I love camping as well. So thank you for sharing. And now this is my final question. I promise I won't ask you anything else after this. But who has been your biggest supporter in your work? And we'll start with Matt for this question.
Oh, geez. I guess my grandfather in a way, because even since I was a kid, when I was coming up with crazy business ideas, like we would go through the exercise of writing business plans, even if we were never going to make the business, just because it was something to do together, And even now my grandfather's like, all right, Matt, what are we going to do like, how are we going to get rich? Like, what's the business plan? I'm like, I don't know. Like, but it's so, he's always been a big supporter, and I can always lean on his like acumen whenever I need guidance.
Yeah, that's awesome that you have that, in your family. And sometimes it may be your grandpa, and sometimes it may be not part of your blood family, but that is so crucial to have that support system. And I love that he really encourages your entrepreneurial spirit and wants to have that $1 million, $1 billion business idea with you. And that's amazing. So Chelsea, your turn. Who has been your biggest supporter in your work?
I would have to say I have a cousin, and I'm not necessarily very close with her, but I knew I wanted to get into social work after I did some mentor sessions and actually got to job shadow her. She is a therapist in Las Vegas, and she was just super inspiring to me because she, came from the same kind of background I came from, and she was able to start her own counseling firm, and she's been very successful in that. So when I, became of age and started thinking about what I wanted to do with my life, she's like, come check it out. Come see what you like. Because I told her I wanted to be a therapist. And so I got to, again, job shadow. And ever since then, it's been like, okay, how are we getting to grad school? Like, what's the mission? And so throughout my very long educational journey, she's just always been there rooting for me and making it feel possible in times when it didn't feel like it was possible. And so just having someone in the family that, has had their own business and it has became successful and is my biggest cheerleader has been really great.
Yeah, what I hear is a mentorship, right? You saw someone who was kind of on the similar path that you and inspired you, and maybe at the time they didn't know that they inspired you, and that's really cool that they were able to show you those things and to share that with you and encourage you, and that's so important. And thank you for sharing that. And so now I'm gonna bring our other amazing co-hosts back on, and they are gonna share a little bit more about how you can support and engage with our organization.
All right, thanks, Cass. So Detroit CHEMpreneurIST is always actively looking for participating classrooms, schools, or nonprofit organizations, other organizations to host our workshops. And so we offer dynamic programming to cater to your STEAM needs. And so to sign up, you can reach out to us at info@detroitchempreneurist.org or reach out to our Director of Strategic Partnerships, and his email is Lynn, Lynn, @detroitchempreneurist.org, and he can facilitate that to get your programming started. And then other ways to help, we are actively doing our own market research. So we have surveys that we have on our link tree, which is also on the screen, and we've been dropping in the chat. So you can do that online. We are interested in also connecting with the community. So we do community events, and we can also do market research there, host focus groups, just getting more feedback on what the community needs, because we always look for that when we bring our programming into different communities across, Metro Detroit and other areas. And then we're always looking for funding resources. So we do have paid programming, but we, are a nonprofit. We're a small grassroots, and we also do opportunities in the community that we'd like to offer for free whenever we can, but it can be very costly. So if you know any resources out there that can help fund our efforts to make these at no cost or low cost to schools or classrooms or organizations, across Detroit and Metro Detroit. You know, we're always looking for that. And we have a new board member that is going to help us facilitate that, Ms. Vanessa. So we're excited. And then just spreading the word. So following our social media, sharing any upcoming events we have going on. That's very helpful. We know word of mouth is the most efficient marketing strategy. So just spreading the word about us can help too. And then our link tree is our hub for everything Detroit CHEMpreneurIST. Like I said, we have our market research on there, upcoming events, or all our social media website, and any new additions we always add to our link tree. So be sure to share that and visit, you know, for more information. So next, as always, every second Saturday, we'd like to offer resources related around today's topic. So today's topic was around food entrepreneurship, or food and STEAM. And so I just have a few. Now, this is not limited to. So any presenters today, if you know additional resources that can be helpful for aspiring entrepreneurs, or as students aspiring in the STEAM field, we'll love to share those too. But just a couple that I have today. The first one is the Food Foundry. So the Food Foundry is a Chicago-based growth accelerator program by Relish Works, built in partnership with Gordon Food Service. And just a little disclaimer here, you don't have to live in Chicago to reap their benefits of this, of their programming. But Food Foundry supports, connects, and propels innovative startups who are reimagining the food industry. And so they offer 3 areas of support. The first is in financing support. So they provide startups who are accepted into their program with $75,000 of venture capital funding to grow their businesses. So you can refer to their frequently asked questions page for further explanation of funding. Their second pillar of support is resources. So they connect startups to national food service business resources, provide a targeted yet flexible curriculum. They support them with dedicated mentors and access to their team of innovation and design professionals. And then their last pillar of support is community support. So they host a number of events and workshops that connect startups with like-minded entrepreneurs, seasoned mentors, and industry experts within one of the nation's brightest food startup hotspots, which is Chicago, Illinois. So they do, even though you don't have to live in Chicago to reap the benefits, they do host at least one event a year that kind of, you know, generate different business ideas. So the next resource that we're going to highlight today is the Michigan Good Food Fund. So the Michigan Good Food Fund is a statewide loan fund that invests in good food enterprises working to increase access to healthy food and spark economic opportunity in places that need it most. So since 2015, this initiative has provided more than 17 million in loans and grants supporting 300 plus Michigan-based food businesses that grow, process, distribute, and sell healthy food. And they are on the lookout for Michigan-based businesses that, with their support, can help make a positive change in their communities. And their support includes financing as well as business assistance with the goal to help entrepreneurs grow their businesses and thrive. Next, we have a local resource, and that is at Eastern Market. So they have programs to start up a food business. So if you're interested in starting a food business in the Eastern Market District, they want to talk to you. So beginning day one as a food entrepreneur, can seem like a daunting task. I mean, even just becoming an entrepreneur in general can be a daunting task. But they hope to be one of your biggest allies in finding the right resources to start your business and keep it thriving. So they have different programs. They also offer commercial kitchen spaces. They offer grants and guidance needed to get your business off the ground. Next, we have Build Institute. And so Build Institute is also a local Detroit business, and as passionate thought leaders, the mission at Build Institute is to empower people to launch ideas and grow businesses. And with a primary focus on Black, Latinx, underrepresented, and under-resourced community businesses, they provide access to equitable holistic support system for ideators and early stage business owners. So they offer a safe and diverse co-working and meeting space. They can provide early stage capital, continuous education, and access to customers. They're headquartered, like I said, in Detroit and Corktown, and they serve Detroiters and other cities across Michigan, so you don't just have to be a Detroiter. And now they even have a national footprint. And one of their programs they do, Detroit Soup, we were actually the winners. Detroit CHEMpreneurIST was the winners of Detroit Soup, which is a pitch competition back in February, but they host different ones every month, and they even highlight specific topics. So I have seen a few Detroit Soup pitch competitions specifically in the food industry. So the last resource that I have today is the Fair Food Network. And the Fair Food Network began in 2009 based on the idea that food has the potential to strengthen local economies, nourish communities, and change shared systems for the better. And when we start with food, we can find common ground. And so we can build lasting partnerships, and we can find new ways to address longstanding inequities. And as a national fund that works locally, Fair Food Network partners with communities works with communities to build solutions to catalyze not just entrepreneur success, but broader systems change. And this includes weaving together community voice, entrepreneur vision, local strengths, and national assets so that food entrepreneurs can be the engine of a more equitable future. And to complement the local ecosystem, some of the resources that they offer is access to capital, business assistance, and networks with an eye towards realizing investments that might not otherwise be possible, with the focus on BIPOC and women-led businesses. And current places of work include New Jersey and Michigan through leadership of the statewide Michigan Good Food Fund and Northeastern United States. So those are a couple of the resources that we provided, and Chelsea also chimed in. They're open now. I know we've shared this resource in the past, but now they're opening applications for Motor City Match. And that is a competitive small business cohort program with access to capital. They have multiple application tracks for all size businesses. And I do know you have to be a for-profit business to apply for it. So not if you're starting a nonprofit, I don't think they have anything, but if you're a for-profit small business, you can apply. They do different applications throughout the year. So thanks for sharing that, Chelsea. We'll be sure to share it on this presentation as well.
All right. I love sharing resources. I think it's amazing. And circling back, that Detroit Soup win for us was it just helped us immensely to really offer our program and to get ourselves out there. And we had a speaker from Build Institute at our July 2nd Saturday presentation. So leading into my next slide, if you missed any of the second Saturdays this year, they are available on YouTube. So if you want to learn more about Build, we had Ani from that program and that organization, and they even talked about things like Kiva. So lots of great resources out there. You just got to search for them. Really, in this community, we're here to help each other. And in Detroit, that's one amazing thing about it, is I feel like everyone just wants to see everyone else succeed. And so our YouTube, there is not only our second Saturdays, but there are also other resources and videos on there that we've done. So head over, like and subscribe any of the videos and get live updates for when we upload things. You can also get to our YouTube from our link tree. So again, that's the hub of everything. So go check it out. And then finally, we have merch available for sale. We partnered with Close Talk. They are a B Corp organization, and we have, I think, over 20 pieces available of high quality merch. They are all black with a white design, so very sleek. It can be casual, it can be formal, but head over. You can get t-shirts, polos, yoga pants, tank tops, all different types of hats. Maybe you need a beanie. It's getting cold outside. I know I might need one. I'm gonna lose a lot of heat on the top of my head, but support us, wear our merch, spread our name out there. That's, word of mouth, like Brittany said, that's how you get us out there, and that's how we get more reach in this community. And so to close out second Saturday, I just want to say thank you again to our guest speakers and presenters, Chelsea and Matt. You were amazing. We loved hearing your stories, learning more about what you both do, the opportunities and organizations out there, and then of course the bees. Bees are amazing. Community development is amazing. So this was a great second Saturday, and I'm just so happy to be a part of it and to be here with y'all again on this wonderful Saturday morning. And so thank you again. We'll see you next month on Saturday.